Third Degree, the podcast, is brought to you by Soccer 90, your source for FC Dallas national team and international club gear. Check out the new FC Dallas Camo pre-match top or shop this year's Dallas Burn gear available now. Don't miss out on the new jerseys and tops from Manchester United, Juventus, and PSG. Remember, Third Degree listeners get 20% off at soccer90.com with promo code Third Degree. Some exclusions may apply. And Third Degree, the podcast, is brought to you by listeners like you. If you like what you hear here, why not join us on the Patreon, give us some support, and help us keep Third Degree, the podcast, and the website coming to you free.
Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast.
Well, hello there, FC Dallas Curious fan. Welcome, hello, once again to another episode numbered
170.
170 of Third Degree, the podcast. Hello, it is me, Peter. Hope you are well. And, of course, here via the miracle of the internet, first, recovering from COVID like a champ, our buddy Dan Crooke. Congratulations, Dan, on making it to the European finals.
Thanks. I thought that was linked to COVID for a second.
Well, I predicted a Germany-England final, so there you go. I'm your lucky charm.
First time for everything.
And your hero, my hero, everybody's hero, and back from his own European vacation. I hope you were following him on the socials as he posted his photos of lovely weather and lovely scenes and awesome-looking food and drink, making us all very jealous. The amazing Buzz Carrick. Come in, Buzz.
Yeah, I did a nice job, Peter, making it look a lot more fun than it was. No, I'm just kidding. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you recommend the European river cruise to the pod listener?
I would if it is in your price range, because I will admit that this was not in my price range.
Oh, I was going to say, boy,
Yeah.
I didn't realize the Patreon was funding you so helpfully.
No, it did not. The in-laws did the funding, and
okay.
I am very, very grateful when I found out what it cost, because it is definitely not in my price range.
Wow,
But
okay.
it is super nice. I mean, it's awesome.
All right, just
It's a
real
lot of fun.
quick, what's the synopsis of where you went and where you ended?
On a boat, Amsterdam to Basel, a bunch of different towns down the Rhine River, saw a bunch of castles, went to Cologne, went to some small little villages, went to Strasbourg, all on there. Pretty cool.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What was the coolest thing you saw? Like, what's the one most kick-ass memory you took away from it?
Well, I happened to be in Cologne the day that AC Milan was playing FC Köln.
Oh.
And I wanted to go to the game, but our boat was leaving 30 minutes after the game, so I couldn't get it out. But we were sort of in the downtown square around the cathedral, and getting a tour of the cathedral, and going to a brew house, a beer house, and all the AC Milan fans were flooding the plaza and flooding the beer houses, as were the FC Köln fans. So that was super cool. European excursion soccery vibe for about an hour and a half in the middle of my day that I wasn't expecting. So that, as a soccer guy, that was a fun, even though I didn't get to go to the game, I was there for all the shenanigans going on in the plaza.
All right.
Yeah.
That does sound pretty kick-ass. All right, Dan, the Lionesses, that backheel goal was pretty awesome.
Yeah, just don't mention a couple of sitters before it.
She made up for it, though.
No,
She
definitely.
fooled
That
them
was-
with trickery
that-
and shenanigans.
That was a great performance. Really happy to see an England team not disappointing.
Man, I have enjoyed so much of this tournament. I talked about it on the radio show last weekend. I thought that England-Spain game was just top-notch. The France-Germany game today was outstandingly entertaining. Man, if people aren't watching this tournament, you got to watch the final, because England-Germany is going to be just drama all the way around. It'll be great. It is the revisit of 1966, just in the opposite gender.
And the Russian linesman, unfortunately, couldn't get a visa to give us an offside goal.
Well, that is unfortunate. Okay, well, I don't mean to be burning up too much time with small talk and banter, because I don't really know how I feel about the state of our little football club Dallas, because I feel guilty, Buzz and Dan. I feel a little bit guilty that my attitude towards the team is a bit sour, despite the fact that they clung on to a really, really ugly and I think it's fair for me to say not necessarily wholly deserved 1-0 win over the weekend. And I don't know, man. It's just, especially doing it at Salt Lake, who had not lost at home all season. And I feel weird bitching about anything. But when you add that in and package it in with the results in Austin and the result before that and the fact they were on a 10-game winless streak, I just my arrows on this team are not pointed in any direction upwards.
Yeah, I certainly think that there are times when winning ugly is important, and I think when you had no results in 7 or whatever it was, and RSL being as good as they are at home, as you say, hadn't lost a game all year. That was one of those moments where a really horrible, in terms of entertainment value, win, the ugliness of that win, could actually really be good for your team, because this is a young team. It is a team that needs to learn some things about soccer and about itself. And hopefully they can take something from that and sort of take, they have been blowing leads, and they didn't blow this one. So you hope that it's something they can take forward, they go forward with. Because really, honestly, like the way the team's playing of late, this is probably the way we all should have thought the team was going to be coming into the season, right? I mean, this is the sort of bottom of the playoffs, fighting, clawing. This is the team we actually expected. That beginning of the year team is not the team we expected. So, this is probably what this team really is. And they need to find these moments and try to find a way to take things forward and go forward and become better than they have been. And hopefully this is a step in that, it's a series of steps, Peter, taken to achieve an eventual goal or higher.
Just say it, Buzz. Yeah? Okay. Just say it.
It's a fucking process.
Dan, I think that's part of the reason why emotionally I'm so conflicted is Buzz is right that this is the team currently that we all kind of predicted at the beginning of the season. But I'll be damned if I didn't get my little Petey hopes up after that good start and kind of smart play and some of the good goal scoring they were doing and awesome defending. But you've written some reviews of the last few games, and I think you dead on nailed it, Dan. This team's got a lot of problems to resolve.
I mean, not talking at all about the game and write up about the game itself. Because
Correct.
The game was that bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
It bugged the hell out of me after that Austin game, which gave me COVID. I tested positive an hour after that game finished. Well, I was sitting there, I was like, okay, I'm going to do my takeaways, and then I felt like shit and I didn't do the takeaways. But the first thing was going to be, Austin's like this little grind-out team, right? They frequently lose the little XG battle, but they were at the time 6 wins, 3 draws, 4 losses from those games. They are grinding out games they have absolutely no right to win. The draw, they really should have turned the screw a little bit and won the game at the end. But if you take the chances and everything, they had no right to even tie that game. And they did it. And that's something FC Dallas has to do. And that's exactly what they did at RSL. And, that's where you need Jesus being a little bit more clinical, being more efficient up front. You need guys like Paul Arriola kind of playing up to form. You need Alan Velasco on his game in the right frame of mind. That all those little things have to click, and especially because what we keep talking about, this paper thin roster that just has no backup for anyone, and you've got guys starting who probably shouldn't be starting already, and it's this is kind of where the hope starts to fade, right? Because the window is rapidly moving on, and other teams are signing players, and we haven't even heard a peep.
Yeah, put a pin in the signing department for just a second, because that is one of the things I wanted to talk about. Because we've harped about this a lot, guys, which is the thinness, the paper thinness, as you say, Dan, of this roster. And I do find it a bit amazing that in this game in particular, in the Salt Lake game, I feel like the entire game oddly hinged on Ensebeling. And I'm still not sure I understand what caused Ensebeling to have to go out of the game. I've read multiple times that people have reported something about altitude sickness, but I couldn't tell if that's actually, or if anybody knows if that's actually what it was. I guess that's kind of a moot point. It was just that how amazingly this game shifted, or Dallas and Nico went into this weird shell immediately after he had to come off, because Nico really didn't have good options.
Yeah, with Brandon hurt, there's nobody really on the bench that he trusts to come in at 8. The other player that plays that position, and many people may not be aware of this, since Thomas is not on the bench, is actually Khalil. Khalil Al-Mankir has been playing 8 a lot in training, partially to get opportunities for playing time, but then never got those opportunities for playing time. It underscores the fact that there are some deficiencies still in this roster. Now, specifically on Siki, they are, investigating, trying to figure out what's going on. He definitely left the game with symptoms that are of altitude sickness, the lightheadedness and vomiting. But when you combine that with the game in Houston, where 5 minutes into the game, Nico told me he was turning to his training staff and saying to them, "What's wrong with Siki? There's clearly something wrong." I watched that Houston game. And it was 2-3 games ago now, but the main way you could tell to my eye that something was wrong with him is that Memo Rodriguez looked like a superstar, and that guy's terrible. So clearly there's something wrong with Siki. If you get lifted twice in the 20 minutes into 2 out of 4 games, there's obviously something going on. So they're trying to figure out what the deal is. They clearly don't know. It could be something diet. It could be something he ate. It could be maybe he's sick and they can't figure it out. I mean, clearly they're concerned about it. We'll find out eventually if they figure out what's going on with the kid, because clearly it was a case of, in the morning, apparently before the game, coach told me he was having trouble eating. He couldn't keep anything down. Have you guys ever had altitude sickness?
No.
It's kind of like you feel like you have a flu coming on. I've had it a couple times. You feel like you got in a flu, like a 24-hour flu. You have trouble eating, you get lightheaded, and you want to throw up. And that's what it's like. So all the symptoms are there for that's what it was. RSL is at altitude. But when you have 2 performances like this in a relatively tight window, it does raise questions. So there's a double factor of questioning here with this move. One, there's not enough options at the 8. The one guy you had, you didn't trust enough to use them. And then also, what's going on with this kid, and when you have these kind of circumstances happening with him. So,
well, that's interesting. Yeah, that's interesting, because I would have told you the reason why he got subbed out so early in the Houston game was because he had given the ball away twice on the 2 Houston goals.
Yeah, he was terrible. No, he was clearly horrible, and that's what coach was turning to his training staff saying, "Is he hurt? What happened? Why is he doing this? What's going on?" And they pulled him out. They subbed him out, and he was upset. Coach said he had a really nice conversation with him later on, and they've talked about it. And they really honestly think that there was something physically wrong with him that they haven't pinpointed from that Houston game. Because then, the next game was the New York game, where by all reports he was phenomenal and played the best game of his career.
Yeah.
So clearly there's something they think, the coach thinks, and this is what he told me today. They think there's something happening, physiologically speaking, and they got to figure out what it is. They don't know, because it's just it's happening on the fly here. Sometimes it's a mystery when you have things like this. It reminds me of I don't know if you remember this story about Ryan Giggs was having back problems for a while back earlier in his career.
Mm-hmm.
They finally figured out it was his car. It was like the seat in his car. It was
I've
like
heard
his
that
Porsche
story,
got,
yeah.
right? So they told him to get a new car, and his back problems went away. So it's like you never know. It could be like maybe his pillow's made out of down, and he's allergic to it, or he drank too much. I don't know. Who
Or
knows?
shagging his brother's wife.
Well, no, that was later.
a little too aggressively.
Yeah.
That's,
That's a totally different Ryan Giggs story. I'm just talking about the backstory.
Did I make Dan laugh? Did I make Dan laugh?
Yeah, Dan laughed.
Yeah, I was talking about Welsh people not shagging sheep.
Hey, wait, I'm part Welsh.
Yeah.
So
You have Velcro gloves?
Okay, stop it. You're from Luton, for Christ's sakes. Okay, so yeah, it's a weird deal because Nseblin goes off the field, and even Steve commented about this, is that Nico went into what appeared to be, at least for a little bit of time, at least to, I think it lasted the rest of the first half and into the second, at least in my notes. I thought they were playing a 4-4-2 with Paxton down on the left and Velasco up top with Jesus, and any semblance of attack, and not that they had a lot leading up to that moment, but at least they were creating a few opportunities. And again, this is another scenario where Dallas is literally given the ball on an unforced turnover multiple times in their opponent's half of the field, and they just can't turn it into opportunities or finish the opportunities until they finally do it in that one moment where Pax and Jesus connect for the goal.
Yeah, they were triggering really well on the press, on the light press, and taking their opportunities. Like if you look at the 5-minute intervals of that game, the first 20, 25 minutes, they have more than their share of opportunities and chances and possession, back and forth. And then, as you say, Siki went out and it went away, and it's like it completely destroyed everything. And they managed to play out the first half in somewhat of a relative decent order, but the second half was complete bunker, low block, just compress the game and kill the game. And it is quite effective in a lot of ways. I mean, RSL had 25 shots, which make you blanch and go, oh my God, what a horrible performance. But most of the shots came from range. 9 of them were blocked. They had 11 shots just go wild off target. That is the purpose of the low block, is to make people shoot from way outside where your keeper has plenty of chance to see him coming, and players can block him. Paz was the man of the match for me anyway, and he had some good saves, and he did bail him out a couple times, and he's the reason they ended up being able to get the win. Mm-hmm. But as these tactics go, it functioned like it was supposed to. The worry is the thing to come back to, which is like the guy that they had to go to. This coach, as near as we can tell, and even from talking to the guy, he talks about players who are in the flow of the game and understand the concepts and understand what they're trying to do. It's the brain of the player that we've talked all season about is important to this guy. And so he goes with, guys that he knows can play. And in that point, all he's got left on the bench, if you look at it, he brought Edwin in that scenario. The other 2 guys that he plays some are Hara and O'Brien, who are forwards. Nanu and Tafari are backs. So, he has no one on the bench but Edwin to bring into the midfield. Clearly, that's a problem. Not that we don't like Edwin, but it's the only guy you had available to bring into the central midfield, and that's not good. And so that's the real issue, regardless of whether you like the game plan or not. And I thought it worked really effectively until they lost Siki. So.
But that is the point, though, right? Like this entire team, amazingly, is almost at this point, halfway through the season, almost hinged entirely on this late draft pick rookie.
Yeah. I mean, until Brandon comes back, Paxton has no backup. Brandon's out. You have Edwin and Facundo and Siki are the only 3 midfielders that he uses other than Paxton, right? He doesn't use anybody else in there.
Okay.
So it's like they have 2 backups for 3 positions, and one of them's hurt and the other one got sick. It's all you got left. That's a problem.
All right. So we asked the question a couple weeks ago. I'm going to ask again. Is there any movement on Thomas Roberts, or is he just persona non grata? And maybe at the end of the day, as much as we love the kid and hype him, maybe it's Thomas and not in the coach?
Well, I talked to the coach in general about why he has such a short bench. And he talks a lot about players being the term he uses is in a rhythm with their game, with the game, which is how you get in a rhythm with the game is that you have to be involved and you have to be around, you have to be participating, and that means scrimmages or it means going and playing, in North Texas. For whatever reason, Thomas is not getting those opportunities since he got back, so he's not in this rhythm. He's not in a position to be able to come into games. Shun has the same problem. Shun being gone a lot for call-ups in and out. He's never gotten the flow. He was gone a little bit because they thought they had his sale lined up, and that fell through.
Yeah.
So in the end, he's picking guys like, because I asked him why he had such a short rotation, and he said that part at least is because they're really healthy. And he said other teams use more guys because they have more guys get hurt, and he's only using the guys that he's using the guys that he says are the best able to give them a chance to win. And so that's the bottom line. I translate that into he's using the guys he trusts, you know, and Thomas just hasn't worked his way into that trust yet. And I think at some point, look, I think Thomas is a phenomenal talent, but at some point, this is like, if you count Lucci and you count the coach in Austria and now you count Nico, it's like the third coach that's not picking him. And so you wonder, what is it? Why does he not get picked? Because I watch him in training, he looks good, you know, and I don't have an answer to it, frankly.
Okay, but I promise we're going to get to the transfer window question here in a second. But what I want to understand is, this is the thing that I'm starting to get frustrated with Nico, is he seems to almost I understand that he is making substitutions, I believe, in an effort to save players long term.
Yeah.
But when he subs Paxton Pomykal out, or he makes a defensive sub, I almost feel like it's like they're subs that he's making because he decided before the game he was going to do it, and be the game scenario itself be damned. And I feel like he's hurting the team when he takes these guys off and puts lesser guys on. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, you know, he for 100% for sure is aggressively managing minutes on players. That's true for sure. There was about 6 players today that basically took the day off. For example, you know, they did a little recovery type running, you know, just a little keep the engine running kind of stuff, you know, but they didn't really participate. So it's the same guys you see getting subbed out. You know, it's just, look, we're looking at another week next week with 3 games in it. So, you know, I think that he's making the best choices that he can with the guys that he has at his disposal that he believes in. Because, again, if you go back to the bench in the RSL game, right, Khalil hasn't played. Quinones is a guy that they want to try and develop, but they don't really trust him all that much yet. I mean, Mauer's a keeper. You're not bringing him in. Benny is a guy that coach really, really likes and wants to be able to reward him with playing time, but you can't really use him like late in a game kill. That's not his thing, you know? So it's like you have Tafari, you have Nanu, you have Hara, and you have Obrian and Edwin. That's it. Those are the 5 guys. So it's like,
yeah. So after the game in Salt Lake, because if I go back and look at the run of the winless run up to the Salt Lake game, one of the things that I keep thinking about game after game is like, all right, these substitutions don't seem to be helping the team in many instances, and it certainly isn't helping the team in terms of control. And I'll use Paxton as an example. I feel like every time he takes Paxton off the field, the team does not improve. And I do wonder at some point, is Paxton not able to go 90 minutes, or does Nico A, think he can't, or B, is just trying to save him long term? And I did wonder in the post-game comments, Paxton was asked about what he needs to improve on, and his first answer is the following, quote, "Yeah, I think just making sure that Nico can continue to rely on me and improve the amount of minutes I can go 90. And I don't know if that is Paxton in a very diplomatic way saying, I need to be playing 90 minutes. I think I can play 90 minutes. I don't know why Nico doesn't think I can play 90 minutes.
Yeah. But my read is that, non-specific to the Paxton in this particular moment, my read is that he's aggressively trying to manage minute loads on guys, you know, that he's trying to think long terms. He's trying to think about the long season. And Paxton is a guy who has a relentless engine. So when Paxton says, I need to be able to go 90 minutes, maybe Paxton's trying to say that he needs to get to a point where he can play 34 games for 90 minutes. I think that's a terrible idea. I don't want Paxton to play 34 games for 90 minutes, but maybe Paxton does. You know, so.
Well, no, but don't we want Paxton in a game when they're a goal ahead or need a goal? I mean, I feel like Paxton's that player that can be a difference maker, even if he's not actually scoring the goals himself. again, I mean, Dan, do you think this team gets better when Paxton comes off the field?
No. I mean, it's the subs pattern is just this. It's just a regression through the game, right? It's okay. It's setting up. You kind of mentioned it's almost as if Nico pre-plans it and just goes, to hell with how the game's going. This is just kind of where I'm getting to. Whether it's like we're going to go to a double pivot, we're going to pull Jesus back and kind of take him out of the attack because there's no one else to fill a midfield slot, which means Hara goes in. Need an attacker. Oh, let's change the right back. Oh, wait, we've got an extra sub. Let's just throw Benny in for 2 minutes. There's no real, or throw an extra centre back on. There's no. The problem with Nico is his halftime adjustments are phenomenal. His in-game adjustments just seem exactly just scripted. Like it's just kind of going through the motions.
I think it feels particularly off for Paxton, Peter, because there's nobody else who can start in that spot. He has to have Paxton.
Right.
There are guys. There's convoluted ways he's trying to make it feel like he can bring Paxton out of games, but there's nobody that can start in that spot. Like Brandon and Siki can both start at the other spot. Faku and Eben can both start in that spot. At center back, Tafari can start a game. Nanu can start at right back. Ema can start at left back. Nobody else can start in Paxton's spot. There is not another player. So if Paxton gets hurt, the thing is just gone. The whole thing is gone. He has to redo everything and change the formation and all kinds of insane crap. So that's why Paxton is, to me, such an egregious example of we really have to protect his minutes, because if you lose him, if he breaks down, the wheels are coming off this thing in a colossal train wreck of a fashion.
Okay, so and again, I promise I'm going to get to the transfer window question, but this leads me to this question related to the Salt Lake game. So if Nziki Sebling comes off the field, why doesn't Nico just shift the team into a double pivot 4-2-3-1?
That's a good question. I don't know.
I mean, that seemed like the obvious solution to me. Now, maybe somebody will tell me it's because of how Salt Lake was playing. Like, that wouldn't have been an advantageous formation to play against Salt Lake. But I certainly think that was at least a better formation. I don't know. It just seemed to make more sense to me than what he rolled out for the next however many minutes it was.
Well, Salt Lake does play a 4-2-3-1, so he may not like lining up in his own double pivot against that, because then you end up with one of their deeper players all of a sudden is free and coming higher and overloading even more than they were. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I'm trying. I haven't asked him that question, so I'm trying to just kind of guess there. But he seems mightily ingrained in a 4-3-3. I only remember them doing a 4-2-3-1 for 5-minute stretches here and there late in games. It's not the only time we ever really see it is when Hara's on and Jesus drops into the hole, and then we see it a little bit, but usually it's more with Paxton. It's usually more of a 6-8 deep look, not a 6-6 look, a Facundo Edwin look.
Right.
It probably just feels there's too much deficiency there. Which is weird because I don't know that's any worse than using Facu as an 8, which is what he was doing for a while. I didn't like either, but I was kind of wondering the same thing at the time. It's like, why not just rotate it and let Paxton 10 it up? But, I don't have an answer to that.
Yeah, well, it seemed obvious to me, but I'm not the coach, and I'm sure that guy gets paid to know a lot more about this than I'll ever forget, or forget more than I'll ever know, and I guess we'll have to trust him on that one.
Usually he has very specific ideas about shapes and stuff. Like there's even a game where they flipped, I don't know if you remember this, they flipped Paxton and Brandon, and it had to do with the kinds of shape of the balls that they were able to play in from the opposite positions. I mean, so he's micromanaging little things like that. So I promise if you ask him, there probably is a reason. I just have no clue what it is.
Okay.
It's also getting it out of him.
There is that
getting him to say it?
Yeah, on the record, it can be tough.
Yeah. All right, well, let's get into the thing that I keep promising to get into, which is we're enjoying watching all of the noise about other Major League Soccer teams making moves and additions or subtractions and additions or additions by subtraction or whatever it is. And by the way, I'm officially pissed that Luis Suarez did not go to LAFC because I really wanted to revive the historically awesome "this league is rigged" bit from back in the MLS version 1.0 that we used to love so much as Dallas Burn fans.
They have an open DP spot, by the way.
I know, and it really when the Luis Suarez news when Taylor Twellman started tweeting out that he was going to LAFC, man, I just had to start flexing those old muscles. It was weird.
The coaching staff thought he was because we were talking about it after the practice today.
Wow.
They were like, and then some of the social guys said that it came out that he wasn't, but they were like, oh man, yeah. That's how I know they have a DP spot available because Nico told me that.
Well, no, because that was the big drama was how they figured out how to get Kalini and Bale on the team without taking up DP spots. That was the drama behind that, and the Philly GM calling them out on it. Yeah. So I think that all happened while you were gone, Buzz. So maybe you weren't aware that
most of it.
That was going down. All right, so here we are, and we talked about this a few weeks ago, and I think one of us here, it may have been me, it may have been one of you guys, that said we're going to find out the ambitions of this team and this front office with how they treat this window. And even I, being probably the pessimist, we're not prepared for them to make no moves whatsoever. I thought if they were going to do anything, we'd get another young, unknown, Bolivian kid or something that they had high hopes for that we may never see actually on a field, or they send to North Texas or something. But for them to do nothing at this point, I'm actually somewhat surprised by.
Yeah. Do you want to do what we think they should do first, or do you want to get right into what they're actually going to do?
No, we can. No. I don't care. It's your pod. You decide.
Okay, because I don't think you're going to like the answer for what they're going to do.
Well, I think I know what the answer is now.
I wrote it down. You want to hear it? Here's a series of actions or steps taken in order to achieve a particular goal. That's their official plan. In other words, it's a process.
Oh. Did you just read me the definition of process out of the dictionary?
Yeah, I did.
You're a jerk.
I know. Here's the thing. I talked to both Zanata and Nico today, and the bummer answer is that they're pretty much up against the cap in terms of roster and their ability to do anything. So that means essentially they pretty much have to get rid of somebody to do something. And they were about to get rid of somebody, and it fell through.
All right, so wait, they were getting ready to get rid of Shun.
Yeah. So the other part of the answer is, coach does not want to. Generally speaking, both Sonata and Nico said that they are happy with the pieces that they have for right now, and that they don't want to do a move or add something unless that piece will 100% for sure, absolutely, unquestionably make them better. So that player has to be basically a walk-in starter or a very competitive sub that's going to push somebody to the wall for their spot. So that you're not looking at any kind of like, based on what they're telling me, you're not looking at like a bring somebody up from North Texas, sign a new like U22 initiative. They know that they need to get pieces to win games because not competing and not so like adding guys just to add guys doesn't do any good at this point. They have guys in the pipeline to develop, right? They're clearly not playing right now to develop. They're making choices in the lineups that are based on winning now, not winning next year or 2 years from now. So I don't think there's going to be any moves this window. Now, Zanata specifically said that the European window is open longer than our window is. Hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. So for those of you at home listening, that means players can leave longer than they can come in, right?
Right.
So if you are already up against the cap and you're already up against it with slots, and you at some point you want to try and get better, that means that you've got to get some stuff out of here. So we're looking at, I'm pretty convinced, we're looking at riding out this season with what they have, attempting to move out, whether it be this window through sales or this winter when contracts expire, to clear space to then do things for next season this winter. So that's that based on the multiple conversations today and the facts that that they clarified about cap room, et cetera, and not having, I asked about, the discretionary whatever's, and they're like, we did a lot of moves this winter. We don't really have much left. Okay. So this is it, basically. This is what it is. Yeah.
All right.
So like I said, I'm not going to answer.
Well, no, but I think that it drives it kind of gets into the point that we were talking about a few minutes ago with LAFC, which is, wait a second, Dallas is a mishmash of mid-tier MLS stars, a couple of guys that are towards the top of the league in terms of notoriety and stats, and a whole bunch of homegrowns and stuff. But LAFC, I mean, my sense is if I was trying to go through the LAFC roster, the value or what they're paying those guys has to be more on average than everybody else on the FC Dallas roster, and yet they somehow still added Bale and Chiellini to the team, not even as DPs. And then you do begin to wonder if the Philly GM was right, that there's just some sort of incredible loopholes or looking the other way that must be going on for that to go on, and for you to tell me that Dallas considers themselves butt up against the cap, that they can't do anything.
Yeah.
That just doesn't make any sense.
Well, you remember that Dallas already used their one buyout, right?
Yeah, they used on Dwyer.
Yeah, so you would have to get guys to do like mutual contract terminations and such like that, So I mean, there's ways to do it. It just doesn't seem that it's in the cards here, right? Because they kind of got one thing. Nico said in passing about the idea of adding players that can help, that make them better, is he said, not pointing at any particular player or pointing at any particular people. He said, there have been mistakes made in the past where guys that they've brought in have not hit, and so they've had,
Let's talk about dancing around, shitting on your boss.
Right. Well, yeah. Or players on your roster even still, right? He can't go, those three dudes right over there, get rid of, but that's basically where they're at. It's like, there's, you can look at Austin, right? They just canned a DP. But they got they had to wait around long enough for the guy to agree to a mutual termination and not play him. I don't know that Dallas is going to do that. I don't know that the Hunts are willing to let a guy rot when they're paying him $3 million a year. You know what I mean? I think they're more likely to figure out a way to use them.
Yeah, but here's the deal. And tell me if I'm wrong here, Dan or Buzz or whatever, but you overpaid for Hara, but Hara's salary, only a portion of that counts towards the cap.
Yeah.
And I think this is where people get into, there are owners that are willing and able to go above and beyond the call of duty. And maybe that's how some of these teams are, with their GAM and TAM and their willingness to overspend outside of the maximum amount. That's how they're pulling this off. And I don't get the sense that Dallas is maximizing all the tools at their disposal. And I do wonder, as much as the Hunts have increased their willingness to spend, if they could just write another check or two to bring in better players. But then again, to your point, Buzz, is it really worth spending all that money just to try to salvage this particular season versus looking towards the long view?
Well, if you look at it this way, technically, Dallas has 9 players that are DPs, and they just buy them all down.
Right.
Right? So Hara, Jesus, Paul Arriola, Alan Velasco, Matt Hedges, Facundo Quignon, Paxton Pomykal, Jose Martinez, and Nanu are all above the DP level in total compensation. Right. So, that's why when they're like, we're up against it, is because they have 9 guys that are DPs. And then they have guys that are getting paid a lot of money that aren't playing. Brandon's losing out to Siki, and he's on 400. Oberon's a bench player at 400. Shun is not playing at all at basically 400. Ema, somewhat reasonably, 300 is for a starting back is fine. If he'd have lost out to Ema, to Nanu, that would have been too much. Farfan's fine. So it's like you still got some misses, even if all those guys are decent, there's still just all that cap money is tied up. I mean, every one of those 9 dudes is a full 600K as far as I know. Maybe Jesus isn't because he's a young DP. And so might be Velasco. Those are weird, those young DPs. But nonetheless, those are all, pretty max cap hits, so you can see how easily it all gets eaten up.
Yeah.
I mean, I take them at their word that they're up against it with the cap. I definitely think they don't want to sacrifice this season either. Like you could go out and get a guy for a couple $1 million, and then you're stuck with a guy for a couple $1 million again. You know what I mean? They want to get it right. So.
Yeah, I think that's where I kind of get stuck in the thinking about this is the value of this season versus the value of understanding that these guys know what their numbers look like and there may be a larger plan in play.
I come back to the idea, and I'm actually on board with this plan, what they're doing, because I don't think you can win this season. I mean, we've talked about this over and over and over again, right? It depends on whether you think this is a cup season or not, and I 100% don't think it is.
No,
so
it's not.
I'm fine with riding out the season. If you can sell a guy or 2 or 3 over the next 3 months, great. If you can get to this winter and have 2 or 3 of these high price contracts disappear, Nanu's loan ends, Frank O'Hara's contract, we pray actually is ending. I'm only 98% sure his contract's ending. For me, Martinez is too much. You got a lot of work to do still, and even if you just look at the bottom of the roster, you got like 12 dudes down there that aren't playing, or is it 13? I can't remember. It's a lot. So there's a lot of dead wood down there too. So you got to figure out a lot of stuff with this roster. I'm talking too much again, man. I'm sorry.
No, we haven't heard from you in a while. It's good to hear your voice and your thoughts. Dan, you want to throw anything else in here?
No, I think so. Doom and gloom enough without me piling on.
Well, okay then. So they have the big Star Wars night game coming up Saturday night, 8 p.m. It's the drone show, it's the fireworks, and then I have a feeling it may turn into the most riotous melee since the Vuvuzuela giveaway at the Cotton Bowl circa late 90s. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but they're giving away plastic lightsabers with FC Dallas branding on it. Now they're the kind of lightsabers that like collapse on itself, so when you flick it out, that's what extends it.
Oh yeah.
And I just maybe I'm the asshole, but I have a feeling that that's a really, really bad idea. Because I could see kids bonking people on the head, walking through the concourses and in the stands and hitting each other. That just seems like a really ridiculous idea, but I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
There's a Paul Areola bobblehead with a lightsaber involved somehow too in this game, I think.
Yeah, I don't know.
Saw that on Twitter.
Okay, so that's coming up, and so Buzz, were you ever able to definitively decide if Velasco is or is not facing a yellow card suspension?
I was able to definitively to figure that out because they updated the suspension list today, and he is not suspended.
Okay.
Yeah, he has, however, reappeared on the could be suspended list.
So if he gets a yellow in the LA game, he's suspended?
Yes. Yeah. And there's 3 people on there now, and it's I just put this in the Discord. Yeah, Jesus Ferreira. And Brandon Cervania. Of course, Cervania's hurt. He's the only player hurt. So Jesus and Velasco are the ones you're worried about. So.
What is the severity and length time out for Cervania?
He's out until he stops having pain. He has some sort, I think it's a rib thing. And effectively, as long as it still hurts when he moves, he can't come back. I'm not 100% clear what the issue is, but basically, Coach said that he like every day they basically run him out on the side, and as long as it still hurts, he can't come back. So I don't know how long it'll be.
All right. Well, so we talked about you kind of exposed for us what they told you they're going to do, but Buzz, do you have an idea of what you think they should be doing?
Yeah,
that differs from that.
Yeah, well, not in the sense of like I'm okay waiting to clear out your roster. I'm okay with that. I don't want them. I don't want them to do something that would hurt them long term in order to try and make a move for now, because I honestly think getting in and out of the playoffs this year is not that important to me. I would actually prefer that they were playing some guys and developing some guys more that they're not. Even if it meant sacrificing the playoffs, because I think you need to get Tafari more time. I think you need to get Edwin more time. I think you need to get, for that matter, find out what Thomas has or Benny has. You got to play some of these guys and find out what they have. You can't just do training. You got to get games for some of them. Unfortunately, that doesn't really play in the public. You can't really be like, we're sacrificing this season to develop. Nobody likes that. It's hard to sell tickets when you do that. So I understand why they don't. The biggest question comes down to, can you do something mid-season to help yourself for the next 2 or 3 seasons? And I don't know that there's anything, given the current limitations of the cap, I don't know that there's anything you could do. Like, your best chances might be like Che coming back, and playing him in some. That might be, things like that. I don't think I think you're too handcuffed with your current roster to be able to actually do anything to improve the team significantly, because the spots where we have a little bit of weakness is like Paxton's backup. Like, in order to get a guy who could actually help you there, it would be really expensive, to solidify right back. Well, you get Nana's burning $800K, you can't, what are you going to do with that? Just, so you're kind of, we'd like to see some depth at the 9. Well, you got $3 million on your backup there, when we'd like to see another wing come in. Well, those are expensive. So the things I want them to do, I after having the conversation with Donato today, I really don't think they have the capacity to do them now. I think they're basically stuck waiting till the offseason, and so I'm okay with that. There's no reason to panic. There's no reason to go, you can point at other teams making panic moves here and there. If you can figure out a way over the next 2 or 3 months to get rid of a couple of contracts, if you can sell some guys that you don't want, like apparently Shun, you can put yourself into position to do good things this winter, which is the better window for MLS anyway, right? I mean, how often have we seen a good summer signing here in Dallas? I mean, other people can do it, but Dallas for some reason can't. So I'm okay with it.
All right, so let me ask an unfathomable question. And I know they lost the other day in a rather exciting game against Red Bull. But considering the resiliency of Austin and watching them fight back to get the tie against Dallas a couple of weeks ago, and the inevitability of the way that game played out, and the fact, Nanu's turnover and the thing that really stuck out for me of that game is that Austin clearly went out and had made some really good acquisitions of guys that had time under their belt. They're more veteran players, not an old team, not like an old NYCFC team, the original, those really old teams of veteran guys, but a nice mix of guys. And what do you think it would do if Austin somehow, I'm not saying win it, but made it to MLS Cup in year 2? And what would be the blowback or the smack of reality with the entire model for Dallas if Austin was able to pull that off in the second year of existence?
Well, I actually think we've already seen that, not on the field. I think we've seen it in the rest of the organization. That Austin basically is, what they've done off the field has been a slap in the face to both Dallas and Houston. In fact, I think both those organizations have responded aggressively, and are attempting to, do things. I mean, like just this week, we're talking about the season ticket renewals have gone out, and they're talking about 2-year price locks because like the East stands are coming down and things like that, unofficially. So, I think that the wake up calls have already happened. And then I think, on field, there's probably some recognition that Austin's done some good squad building, and I think they're probably Dallas has recognized that too. I hate to harp on this idea, but when we go back to the beginning of the season, how emphatically they talked about how this was not going to be an overnight turnaround, and how the way the team is right now is what we all actually expected, and that this early season success actually was like, in a way, almost was perhaps not helpful because people got really excited about, look how great this team is. And you're like, no, dude, this team's got all kinds of problems. Stop with that. And so I would imagine that they're well aware of exactly what the differences between their team and Austin's team is. It is. They have put together a very solid team. They built that team really well. They also have managed to get out of a bad contract when they, that Dallas doesn't seem to be able to do. So.
Well, okay. So Dan, if that was to happen, again, the unfathomable scenario of them at least just making MLS Cup in year 2, do you think that forces the Hunts to consider rethinking their model of how they have chosen to go about doing their on-field business? Or do you think they stick with it?
I think that emboldens them, if anything, to say, well, you just have to finish 7th and you're in the race.
Wait, but how does that relate to Austin making the MLS Cup?
Because it proves the point. If a second-year team can do it, then anyone can do it.
Oh, okay. Well, but they've been towards the top of the table the entire time.
Yeah, but we're talking about the Hunts. Logic doesn't necessarily apply.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, it makes me wonder if they would rethink their entire deal, because their deal is predicated on the business model of the academy and homegrowns and growing kids and selling them off and playing them and stuff like that. But if another team in the state walks in and, quickly assembles a team good enough to make it to the final, win it or not, I just think that is a really damning result for the Hunts and for Houston too, for that matter. I don't want to exclude them from this. That I would have to think
Probably
at least some conversations are thinking about it. Why?
Well, they inherited the great San Jose team. They won 2 cups, and they haven't just been mediocre from day one.
Yeah. Well, no, Houston has a ton of advantages everybody tells me about all the time that they don't seem to capitalize on. But I also don't think Houston has the banner of the academy and the homegrown success stories and selling kids to Europe that Dallas has. Really, out of the 3, Houston is the one that appears to be in the worst shape at this point because they don't really have anything to hang their hats on of value anymore. Yes, they have 2 MLS Cups, but that's been a long time since they've been successful.
Yeah, they've had a decade of stagnation, and they don't have their academy's not produced anything that helps their first team yet. They have one guy, but he's not. It's memo. Right. He's not particularly very good. It's not. He's probably like worse than Brandon. Brandon's only a roller coaster, but at least sometimes Brandon's really good. Memo's just trash.
All right, so Dallas does have, it's another 3 games in a week situation, and what's interesting about this is that they've got L.A. and then they got to travel, and this was the trip that I wanted to make, but life got in the way. I really wanted to go spend a week on the Pacific Northwest and attend both of these games. They have to go to Portland and Seattle, and L.A. is its own kind of weird story with a series, 3 losses and a win in their last 4. 2 wins and 3 losses in their last 5. Portland's been on a bit of a run. They are an undefeated run in their last 6, 3 wins and 3 ties. And Seattle has been that weird, mysterious team where just when we thought they were about to do their annual rise like a phoenix thing, they went on a 3-game losing streak, although they did beat Colorado. So, the good news is if you compare them to what Dallas has been dealing with lately, this is actually a run of 3 teams with a lower points per game average than the teams they were playing during their winless streak. So I don't know. This does feel like a dangerous stretch run for Dallas, and they may be chum in the water for these teams, but at least statistically, this should be a little bit more of a fighting chance, Buzz.
Yeah, these games are really important because these 3 teams are 7, 8, and 9. These are 3 of the teams that are trying to knock you out of a spot. So these are 6-pointers, if you will, if you appreciate that kind of.
Yeah, they definitely are.
But when you look at Dallas over the course of the season, right, a lot of their positivity in terms of their standings comes from the first part of the season. That's why that win was so important last week, because they're like in goals for, I think they're tied for 4th in goals against. This is all in the Western Conference. They're 2nd in goals against. They're 2nd in goal difference. I mean, there's a lot of positivity here with this team. They have a 500 road record. How often do we say that a 500 road record is a hallmark of a good team in Major League Soccer, right? So, this team is still in a good position. There's still lots of good things happening. It's not, we shouldn't put the death knell on this team yet, but, these are 3 really big games. Listen, they're all big. The Western Conference is tough. We've talked to death about how difficult the schedule was this year, but, it's probably difficult every year. But these kinds of games, like a home game against LA Galaxy, who are, maybe stumbling a little bit in the shadow of LAFC, that's a huge game. If you can manage to get a point, or even a win at a Seattle or a Portland, those are massive, massive points if you can get some of those things. So, you never want to downplay any games, but these game 3 in particular, loom as opportunities to cushion yourself and really separate yourself from the teams that don't belong in the playoffs.
Well, we talked about it on previous episodes. The schedule really doesn't afford any time down. I mean, we can carve this into little 3 or 4 or 5 game parcels or even 2 game parcels. And if you just look at the rest of the schedule, I don't really see a let up at any point between now and the end of the season.
Yeah, the trouble here is the 3 games in a week, and we've talked about the shallowness of this roster, and you don't know what's going on with Siki, and you don't know when Brandon's going to be back. So they're going to have some work to do in trying to figure out how to piece together a lineup in terms of, I think given Brandon's circumstances, Siki almost has to start again. And if he can't make it out of the first half, man, this thing is going to come apart quick, as we saw against Salt Lake. But yet they turned around and figured out how to grind it out. I'm hoping that Salt Lake win can galvanize them a little bit, because they're going to need that camaraderie and that steel in these 3 games, because you really can go, if you get a couple of results here this week, you're really going to go a long way to cementing yourself in the playoffs.
Okay. What else did we want to get into?
While you're pausing, we can do a quick shout out to Malachi Molina, who's one of the kids in the academy who's on my homegrown watch list. He's the one Dallas Academy player that was named to the MLS Next All-Star Game. Yes, there's an All-Star Game for academy kids coming. I'm sure.
Oh, that's right.
There's all kinds of weirdness, probably with how the rosters were selected. Nonetheless, he's the one Dallas guy. He's a bright young player, I think, who's a U17 and will be again this year. A talented kid. I think eventually he's going to be a pro. So congrats to Malachi Molina for making that first ever MLS Next All-Star Game.
And talking about purchasing players, inbound players, we also learned today that Dallas is going to get a special check, a lovely check, because Chris Richards is now going to play for Crystal Palace. That deal is done. I think Tom Bogert wrote that I think Dallas stands to make at least $5 million out of that deal, depending on how the incentives and bonuses go with Chris.
Exactly how much they're going to get is complicated, because he was only with Dallas for, as a pro for 6 months, and that was all on loan, and he was really only, in the academy for like a year. So, on paper, he was.
Well, there was a 35% sell on his contract, is what they reported.
Right.
Today.
Well, originally he was reported as 40%, and then it was 35%, and then there are some incentives. There's no way I could possibly tell you how much money they're going to get.
Right.
There's going to be some money. Consider it a gift. I mean, he never really played here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He came through the academy for a year. He was a gift from Eric Quill, the gift that keeps on giving, along with Chris Kappas, who that was not able to keep giving because Houston screwed Dallas out of that. But, at the same time, great that a guy from their system's getting that chance. Chris is a great kid, genuinely a nice, jovial, fun guy. And I'm super hyped he's going to the EPL. And it's going to be great for Dallas to get some money. Now, these money comes in payments, and it doesn't all come in one lump sum. But, the Hunts are adamant they don't take money out of the club. They claim it's going to get reinvested. And if what Zanata told me was true, that they're kind of out of money, this gives them some more money to play with. So, in terms of funny money, they're not out of money. I don't mean it that way. They're out of this funny money roster money. You know what I mean?
Well, it certainly isn't coming in the form of a season ticket holder check, right? Or a share check, or profit sharing check, or whatever.
That happens anymore.
I just want somebody at some point to at least address that matter, because it's just so weird that thing went away the way
My
it
biggest takeaway, I was reading that Athletic article today, and the biggest takeaway for me on that thing was that Lucci's the one that cut Chris Richards in the first place. And then apparently from this article, he didn't really want to take him back, and Quill kind of talked him into it. But Lucci's also the one that let Jonathan Tompkinson leave FC Dallas for Solar, who's now the kid who's now at Norwich. So, Norwich, sorry, Dan. So
Norwich.
Yeah, Lucci apparently can't spot center backs, apparently.
Oh,
yeah,
from Jose Martinez.
Yeah. In some ways, as much as I like Lucci in so many ways, it's like apparently center back blinders are a problem for him.
Yeah, he's got a blind spot. Yeah, I read that article. And by the way, what Buzz is referring to is The Athletic wrote a big piece. Sam Sketchko wrote a big piece about Chris Richards and kind of history, his histrionics, and how he ended up with Dallas but got cut first, and tells the whole story that we've told on this podcast 100 times. But the way that he tells the story about Lucci cutting him and then having to reconsider isn't the best light for Lucci.
No.
And I want to be fair to Lucci, because I do want to at some point have to assume that there's like extenuating circumstances and context behind his decision. Like, well, do we really have a place for this guy at this time? Or, other things going on. It's not like he's just got this ability just to take as many guys as he wants to. I don't know. But the way the article writes it out just makes Lucci look really kind of bad in terms of skill evaluation of center backs.
Yeah, well,
it's not a good look.
You'd have to go back and look at who their center backs were at the time, and that's what they said was that they were looking to compete with more polished players in the moment. And Chris admittedly was really, really raw.
Right,
he was not playing at a high level at all, and even they talk about that in the article how he took massive adjustments at Texans when he was working under Quill. Quill right away recognized his potential. Of course, Houston Texans is not nearly the academy system that FC Dallas is. So, they have the luxury to take a guy on like that, whereas Dallas maybe already had people in those spots. And if Chris didn't understandably look very good, that's what it comes down to, jokingly about Lucci and center backs or whatever. But I do remember the other side of that story is that I was there the first week that Chris and Kappas and Chris Richards showed up, and they joined the academy, and they immediately were in first team training. Like Oscar had them in with the first team in FC Dallas camp, like the week they showed up to be in the academy. Mm-hmm. And that was when I've told the story about watching Kappas play and having my soccer heart beat fast just watching Kappas and how excited I was about him. And the same was true of Richards. And after the practice, I went over to Oscar. I said, "Oh my gosh, who are the two kids? The kid in the middle is amazing." And Oscar's like, and the center back is incredible. And I said, "Yeah." So Oscar instantly saw how good Richards was and instantly saw how good Kappas was. Both of those guys were a gift from Quill, and Quill did the right thing in recognizing that they did not need to stay with Houston Texans. They needed to go on to the next level. And I've even talked to people from that academy, like parents, that were like, we hated it, but also we all knew they needed to move on. So it was those kids were both a joy to watch come through the academy. And it would have been the first team for Kappas, but was the first team for Richards for 5 minutes. And he was in there in training all the time, and his progression was remarkable.
Well, that then brings me to the curious story of one Justin Che, who I bitched and whined like a little kid when they loaned him over to Germany. And I do understand there's some extenuating circumstances with the fact that he's from there originally or lived in Germany and really thinks that he should be playing in the Bundesliga or something like that. But it's clear that Justin's just not ready for that level yet. He's not finding the time. Dallas needs a center back, and as far as I understand it, Dallas still owns him.
Yeah.
Why is he not back here playing in MLS? Is it simply just that he doesn't want to play in MLS? Is that all it is?
I don't know. It may be like, right before I left was when the stories came out that Hoffenheim was going to kind of move on, and they wanted him to still develop. But the problem is they don't own him. Dallas owns him. And so there were some reports that immediately followed that basically said, like, you can't loan him to somebody else from Hoffenheim. The only thing you can do with him is send him back to Dallas. So but then nothing's happened since then. It may be a question of, coach doesn't want to, if he's interested in coming back, I don't even know if coach here would want him back because, he is about not being players that aren't around. I mean, look at Schoen, right? So I don't know that what is Che, 19 now? I don't know that given his hesitancy, Coach Nico's hesitancy to not play anybody but Martinez, he doesn't love the way Tafari reads the game and passes. Quinones doesn't get playing time. I don't think there's no way in hell that he would play Che at center back. If Che comes back, he's going to be looking at right back again, and you're already going to have – so he'd be in the mix with Ima and Nanu. Now Che is more like Farfan in terms of like a defensive first outside back. So there would be a really nice balance there. So I can certainly see him getting minutes outside back if he does come back. I don't have any inside information that he is. All I saw was the reports that came out of Germany, but Dallas definitely still owns him. And Hoffenheim, the only thing Hoffenheim can really do is buy him or send him back. Those are your only two options, really.
Well, it all seems too obvious that if he really wanted some quality playing time, he could be getting it back here in Dallas, and I don't quite understand why it's not, but maybe you answered the question. Maybe he's not really wanted and he doesn't want to come back, so sit in Germany he does. Okay, anything else that we need to discuss? I think we've hit just about the hour mark at this point.
Yeah, man, there's a lot in there. Dan, you got anything?
I mean, there was a pretty important transfer on the women's side of the game from the Metroplex. Jaden Shaw signing for San Diego Wave. Anytime a league creates a rule just for you means you're pretty good.
What's the story behind that?
She's not eligible. She would have to wait until 2023 for the college draft. A lot of European clubs were looking at signing her, so basically they NWSL created a new discovery rule just so that she could be a discovery player while still 16.
Peter,
Wow.
you remember that's the girl we saw at the Dallas Cup that you were like, holy smoke, who is that?
Yes.
And I was like, Jaden Shaw, yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the most impressive performances of any soccer player that I had never seen before. It just stood out like such a shining light in that game. That was at Dallas. Was
Dallas
it the
Cup,
Women's Dallas Cup game?
Yeah.
And it was the final, too, wasn't
I think it was the U17 final, if I remember.
Yeah, man, absolute baller.
Yeah.
And I just, and I raved about her on the radio show. She's outstanding.
The game where she went and scored 2 goals on her former team.
Yeah, she used to play for FC Dallas.
That's right.
Yeah, she trains. She often trains with some of the MLS guys that do stuff on the side. She often trains with them. That's how good she is. And one of those guys told me that she's the best female player they'd ever seen in their life. That's how good she is. And that's pretty strong words because at the time I think she was like 15 or 16. So they told me that. Yeah, that chick is phenomenal.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing more out of her. And she's still only 16. Is that how old is she now?
I think she's now 17 going on 18. I'm not 100% sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
She's 17.
Yeah, she's way too good to go to college. No business going to college, that girl. She'll be with the national team eventually.
Yeah, she's had training stints with Paris Saint-Germain before. I think Man City and Arsenal are supposed to be looking at just announced to the under 20 World Cup roster.
Yeah, there's a women's U20 that just came out, and most of it is girls in college, and Jane Shaw, who's 17. So,
What high school is she from? Do you know?
oh man, off the top of my head.
Centennial, Frisco.
I think. Yeah. She's from Frisco. So yeah.
From Frisco. Okay. Very good. Well, congratulations to her. That's fantastic. And I very much anticipate seeing a lot more of her in the future at various levels. That's really cool. All right. Well, Buzz, first, Dan, I hope you're feeling better. I know COVID gave you a good kick in the sack there for several days. I hope you're feeling better, bud.
Getting there.
All right. Are you going to go? Are you going to be at the game Saturday?
I will be at the game, yeah. Now that I'm out of MLS health and safety protocol.
All right. And Buzz, I'm glad you made it home safely. I'm glad you had a fantastic time. You well-deserved time off for you and your family.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, it was a big in-law cavalcade of fun. Hey, it's Buzz again, reminding you that Third Degree, the podcast, is brought to you by Soccer 90, your source for FC Dallas, U.S. national team, and international club gear. Check out the new FC Dallas Camo Pre-Match Top. Our shop this year is Dallas Burn gear available now. Camo Pre-Match Top, that sounds cool. And don't miss out on the new jerseys and tops from Manchester United, Juventus, and PSG. Remember, Third Degree listeners get 20% off at soccer90.com with promo code Third Degree. Some exclusions apply.
All right. Well, thank you for your patience and sticking it out for 2 weeks and waiting for us to come back. You FC Dallas Curious fans, we will speak to you again next week after a whole bunch of wins, most certainly. And maybe we'll even do some post-game live stuff again. Just watch out on the Discord for another episode of Third Degree, the podcast.
Yay, transfer window stuff.
Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast.